Welcome to day 3 of our virtual event, From Praise to Promise. By now, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted all of our lives, none more so than for direct support professionals. In today's session, Coping with COVID, Dr. Karyn Harvey is going to share some of the unique stressors that is affecting direct support professionals and how it's impacting their work every day. Today's session is brought to you by the American Association on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, AAIDD. So thank you, AAIDD, and Dr. Harvey, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I am so privileged to be here today with one of my favorite organizations in the world, NADSP. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and talking to my favorite people in the world, the frontline staff, those of you who are giving your life every day, working with folks, supporting, just being present. Thank you. So today what I'm going to talk about is COVID, right? Because we can't get around it. And this is one heck of a reality, but I want to talk about how it might be affecting us and what we may be going through as we go through this process, and then how to kind of take care of ourselves and how to negotiate our way through it. So first of all, what I want to say to all of you working with folks or supporting those who work with folks, thank you. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you that you have chosen this work. Thank you for seeing those who are unseen, for being there for people who have been left out, for connecting with those who are isolated, more isolated now than ever. But you are the bridge. So thank you so much. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for what you do. And let's talk about what we've been through. It's been a tough time. And COVID, there's that ugly little demon. It has all kinds of levels of trauma associated with it. According to Francine Shapiro, who's an expert in trauma, she says we have big T trauma and we have little t trauma. And the big T trauma, the big impact is, when you've been through something, okay, there's been abuse or there's been death and there's been loss and there's been pain. And when we know we've had something significant. But what she also says are the little traumas, the small hurts add up. And they can also affect you, the little losses. So today I want to talk about the big T trauma and the little t trauma, and then talk about how we can be resilient, how we can pull our strength up, how we can move forward, and how we can actually turn our own lives around and really make this all better for us. So I always try to end on a positive note. The middle isn't always that good, but at least we're going to get to something positive, I promise. And let's look at, first of all, the really tough thing, and that's who we've lost. So at this point, I just want to take a moment of silence to honor the lives of those whom we've lost. We've lost so many wonderful people. I've known a number of people we support who have passed away, and I've known staff, and I know you know people. And my deepest, deepest sympathies for your loss. This is no easy time, and this is nothing that anyone certainly expected. We didn't expect to be going through something like this. And I just want to give my deepest sympathy. And I want to talk about how to get through loss, because a couple of things are going on right now. And I think it's important for us to recognize. You may have lost somebody you really care about. And you may actually also be re-experiencing a loss, because loss is trauma. And you got to give yourself permission to go through it. Because if you just keep pushing those feelings aside and keep pushing forward and pushing forward, one day it all comes up. And often when you least expect it or want it to. So take a minute for yourself. Many people have lost folks. Other people are re-experiencing losses they've had in the past as they see these numbers and as they know people who know people. So give yourself a minute to just feel and find a space for you. So a couple of weeks ago, I was walking in my neighborhood. That's one good thing for COVID for me. I'm walking more. I always said I was going to exercise more. Here I am. And there was this man in this neighborhood where there's lots of homes with families and kids everywhere. And he had just a little strip of woods right behind his house, not maybe 6 feet wide and about, 18 feet long. And he was crouched there. And I thought maybe he was having a problem or something, but he was just like this. And I said, "You okay?" And he went like this. Just give me a minute. And then you could hear kids screaming in the background. The guy was like, "I need a minute." So if you can find a space for yourself, a space where people don't need you, right? A space where no one is asking you for something, a little space just for you, maybe a bigger space, but just for you to find a space and be there in your space for yourself, at least a couple of minutes every day. Give yourself a break. This is not easy. So the Mayo Clinic has recommendations about grief. And I want to talk about grieving for just a minute and what we think we should be doing versus the reality of grief, right? Because grief is trauma, and this is tough. So many of us have read Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's Stages of Grieving, thinking that we should go through them all, anger, denial, bargaining, acceptance. We should go through that, actually denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance, but we should go through it and we should be at acceptance. You can't put that pressure on yourself. She actually wrote that for people who were dying. She said they went through those stages, actually 5 stages of being in denial, being angry, bargaining, accepting. These are the stages for those who are dying. And then, trying to care for others as you go. So she didn't talk about what we should be going through, and yet that has been misinterpreted. And people put pressure on themselves thinking, well, I should have accepted it by now. Just feel what you feel and go through what you go through. Time is basically all we've got. And still, it'll come in a wave. And so I want to give a few pointers on dealing with loss from the Mayo Clinic. And they have a wonderful, wonderful department of psychiatry and also psychologists and neuropsychologists who really work together on mental health issues. And they say, give yourself permission to grieve. Don't think you just have to keep plowing through. Take a minute for yourself and give yourself permission to have that grief and go through that. They recommend you write a letter to the deceased person. Say what you want to say in that letter, because so many times we lose people and we didn't expect to, and we never get to say all the things we want to say. And that letter really does give a lot of a sense of somehow some kind of completion. Just to be able to say it is very helpful. They recommend that you journal about positive memories. Write those good memories down so you can crystallize them The bad ones, let go of it. It's over. It's old stuff. But you write the good ones down and crystallize them. Talk to someone. I think it's really important that we find people to talk to. Might be a therapist. Many agencies have EAP programs where you can have at least 5 sessions for free. Some people find support groups. Those are very, very helpful. Good friends, but not to keep it in. And therapy does help and can be very, very critical in getting through these periods. And losing someone to COVID in particular is really tough because most of us didn't get to see the person, right? So you couldn't say goodbye, even if maybe you could FaceTime, but you couldn't go in most cases to the hospital. So you didn't have that moment to say what you really needed to say, and you didn't have the privacy to say it oftentimes. And, you know, it happened so quickly for many people. I'm so sorry. So, you know, you may need to get that extra support if this is something you're going through. And if not, just, you know, being able to talk about what we're going through, because we're going through societal trauma. This is a trauma on our society, 2020. So, you know, getting that support and not isolating yourself is really critical. Understand that those around you are affected as well. They say, you know, sometimes you're going through so much you don't realize that other people that you care about are also going through the same thing, and connecting with each other can be very helpful. Lending a supportive ear to others, right? Listening as well. I don't have to tell you all that because you are the champions of listeners. Anyone who works in this field, listeners with the true ear. And then they say, prepare yourself for the reoccurring grief of holidays and, you know, maybe an anniversary, birthday. So I have a friend who lost somebody right before Mother's Day, and so they just made a big Mother's Day celebration to celebrate their mother who died from COVID. I know somebody else who celebrated Father's Day because their father had died the year before, where they got together. Actually, it was sad they had to get together in their cars and share from their cars. Gotta do what you gotta do in the time of COVID. But they had a cake in the middle and they all took a piece. But do what we have to do, prepare for when you think that grief might come up. And that's important. This is all about self-care. So losing people is time to figure out how to care for yourself. You know, and don't think you have to just push past it, because we're human and we can't. Okay. This has also been a very tough time. No joke. Watching some horrific murders. Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd. But these murders have been going on, and we know that. One gift of COVID was that everybody was watching. I have a friend who worries a lot about her sons and talks to me about that a lot. You know, her sons are both African American, and she's like, you know, my kids are Black. What's going to happen to them? And they're boys. And she said to me, you know, even as horrible as it was and as triggering as this is, I'm encouraged because I feel like people are finally now not just watching. It isn't just a quick blip on their television. Because we were all home, or home in different places, if it's a residential setting or wherever we are, we're kind of stuck. People were seeing. And because of that, people don't want to take it. So this has been a very important time, a time to recognize that we've got to address these horrible injustices, and a beautiful time where everybody is waking up at most, right? And President Obama gave a speech a while ago, probably now it was about in the beginning of the summer, I believe, but it was very short. But what he said was so impactful. And it's something that I've been holding on to. He said, you know, people were calling him up and talking to him saying, we are right back where we've always been. We haven't made any progress. These murders are happening, these senseless murders, this racism. And he said, you know, I've told everybody that's called me or reached out to me, it's not the same. It's not the same at all because of two things. There's two reasons why it's not the same. One is that look at the diversity of the people protesting. Look at that. And two is look at the youth. So many young people standing up, just have had it, not taking one more minute, taking things into their own hands. And there's a beautiful movement with youth leading. So it's been a very important time in our country. And it's also a tough time if you have experienced racism in your life. And if you're Black or brown, I'm sure you have. It's a time when people have been triggered. You know, I've had lots of very deep dialogues. I'm sure most of you have as well, like people sharing terrible things they've been through, you know, and a lot of people were triggered by this. And that meaning like, oh, those same feelings of fear and anger and hurt coming up again. And we might have trauma in ways we don't even realize. And we might be having trauma responses. When a part of our brain is wired to protect us, right? Our amygdala. And when something dangerous happens, that amygdala flashes that you're in danger, and it also takes a picture and remembers it. And it will trigger a trauma response, a fight, flight, or freeze response. It also triggers feelings. And we see this with the folks we support. We see many of them just becoming so aggressive, not because they want to hurt anyone, but because they're afraid, they're freaked out, or we see them trying to run. But we go through similar patterns, only not as extreme. And we might find ourselves all of a sudden feeling unsafe, or not wanting to go to the store, or not wanting to do things we normally do, because we might feel triggered. So trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder is not just either you have it or you don't. We used to feel that way. And we used to think that, okay, vets have trauma, right? And everybody else, you just go through stuff. Now we understand that post-traumatic stress disorder occurs everywhere. And what I believe is that it's a continuum, and you can have very small degrees of it. And you might all of a sudden feel triggered and not know why. COVID might make you feel like, I just can't trust anyone. I don't know who has it. I don't know who's going to infect me. The incidents of murder and racism might make you feel like I'm not safe to leave my house. I'm not. All different degrees of PTSD that we may be experiencing that we don't even know. And it's important to know what you're going through. So here's some symptoms of PTSD that people go through that you might find yourself experiencing from any of these circumstances, from our societal difficulties now, right? People re-experience trauma. So I was in the grocery store a while ago when this first started, about a month into COVID, all masked up. And there was this woman with Down syndrome with her mother, her older mother, and she was pushing the cart. And I wanted to make some kind of connection. So I was like, wow, it's great you're helping your mom. You know, I was 6 feet away and everything, doing my due diligence. But this woman turned to me, big eyes, Down syndrome. And she said, my father died. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thinking he just died from COVID. And the mother shook her head and she said, he died 20 years ago. But this woman was re-experiencing her worst trauma because everything had been shut down. So oftentimes when there's a trigger, when there's something dangerous, your amygdala starts flashing and tells you you're in danger, and you start re-experiencing past traumas. So she was like, my father died. So you go to your worst, and then you go to your most recent. And then her next words to me were, and I lost my job. I lost my job. I used to work at Michael's. I can't go there anymore. And she had her Michael's shirt on. That's a craft store for those of you who don't have Michael's where you are. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You know, and this was someone who was experiencing trauma. Many of us have had very strange dreams. Here's why. Our subconscious has had to re-scramble the entire world. We were used to getting up, going to work, going here, going there. All of a sudden, it's upside down. Many folks working with folks used to going out. We're in the community. We're doing this. We're doing that. All of a sudden, you can do anything. And they would go home every weekend with their families, and they're not going anywhere. All of a sudden, we're in a different reality. And our subconscious organizes the constructs, or like the boxes that we put reality in. And we understand it in a certain way. And then our conscious mind can just go, go, go and make decisions and work and do what we got to do. But our foundation of our subconscious has shaken to the core. And it's upside down. And it's telling us, no, this isn't reality. That isn't reality. And when does our subconscious talk to us? When we're sleeping. How many of you have had really strange dreams? I've had nothing but strange dreams. I have one strange dream after another. Even last night, I dreamt that I was taking my walk when I was supposed to be recording this. I'm always dreaming something weird now. But all of us, or many of my friends that I talk to, are having the same experience because our subconscious is working overtime, and we're like, what's up? What's happening? How can I cope with this? It's one symptom. Next symptom is called hypervigilance, where, you know, we might want to put things in order just to try to get some order or semblance in our world. Everything's upside down. So let me just make a row of things. I see lots of folks with autism doing this. And sometimes I believe they're misdiagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. Sometimes they actually have it, but sometimes because they're trying to make their world straight and have these rituals to understand things, it's how they're dealing with the trauma of having a world that's upside down all the time because they have such, you know, sensory sensitivities, right? Their sounds are screaming in their ears and lights are flashing. Well, we're kind of in the same boat. Right now, we're kind of experiencing what people with autism go through on a daily basis because everything is different and nothing is predictable and everything is changing and everything's in our face. And today this is safe and tomorrow it's not safe. I have my cute little gator mask and oh no, that'll make you even sicker. Darn it. I like that mask. Oh well, I had 3 actually. I am a fashionista. I can't just have one. I'd have 3. Now I got to go back to my cotton mask. Who knew? But we're never safe and things are never safe. So we're having these, you know, experiences and we may find ourselves wanting to just do something we can control. Like I've been cleaning like crazy. I am not that type of person, but I'm just scrubbing. When I ran out of paper towels last week, it was like a crisis. Oh my God, I don't have any paper towels. Call my husband. You need to go to the store right away. He's out working. He's like, I don't care what you're doing. Get to the store and get me some paper towels. Yes, I was overreacting. Trauma, possibly. So that hypervigilance. Also that disconnecting. Sometimes we find ourselves disconnected, not connecting, trying to stay safe by not being present. Talking to someone and not even remembering what they just said because you're not present. That's a symptom of PTSD, dissociation. Another symptom of PTSD, negative alteration in cognition and mood. See, we can have little bits of it. And that's why we need to take care of ourselves. We may not be like full blown, you know, not being able to function, but we may have these bits that are affecting us in ways we don't even realize. There's a symptom area called negative alteration in cognition and mood. It really means a sense of impending doom. That feeling like, oh no, the world is coming apart. I think we have a collective sense of impending doom. And, maybe we're starting to have some hope now. We see some vaccines, we see some possibilities. But for many months, people have felt like no matter what happens, so many people I talk to say no matter what happens, it's not going to be okay. It's not going to be good. So that's a trauma response. We are going to get through this. There's a lot of really smart people working on this. We're going to make it, with a lot of scars, but we're going to make it. But that sense of impending doom is our brain telling us we're in danger, we're in danger. And oftentimes that amygdala is not rational and not right. Hyperarousal, final symptom. I bet those of you working with folks directly are seeing this, right? Easily exploding, impulse, and just being in a hyper state. That's a symptom of trauma. So I work with this one guy. I do a lot of therapy with folks with disabilities, various types. And I work with this one guy, and he broke all his computers, just went crazy, broke everything. Sorry, I said that word. I'm trying not to say it. Just kind of had a moment and broke things, and then broke his phone. I couldn't do teletherapy with him. I had to email his father. Can we get him another phone? What can we do? Because he was so sure that the staff were bringing COVID into his house, and he didn't want the staff there, and he didn't, just that hyper aroused state. A lot of the behavioral issues we're seeing now from a lot of folks are related to this fear, and that fear being its own kind of trauma. So we have two big categories. The category of, according to this neuropsychologist, Terapu, says you've got that category of being hyper vigilant, trying to get things in order, hyper aroused, startling easily, triggering easily. Oh my God, what's going on? Oh, what's that? And then we have this other category that he talks about. He said, we don't talk enough about this, that dissociation or being disconnected from reality that I mentioned earlier. Like, how many of you have been just sitting in front of the TV and not even absorbing what's going on because you're not even present, or listening to someone and you don't know what they just said, or because that is another way that we protect ourselves, by disconnecting from reality. And that's also a symptom of PTSD. So we can have little bits of it. This is what many of us are going through without even realizing it. And many of the folks we support as well, which is further traumatizing to you, because then you get that secondary trauma. You're dealing with your own trauma, and then you're dealing with the trauma of the people we support, because they know things are really off and wrong, and they know they're not seeing their family, or that something bad happened to grandma or dad or whatever, but they are responding to that without all the facts. So that's actually even scarier. And when you're supporting people who have trauma, without realizing it, you absorb that trauma. That's called secondary trauma. So it's a double whammy for many of you. That's why you need that self-care, right? Sometimes it's okay if the only thing you did today was breathe. So don't be so hard on yourself. Take a minute for you. You've got to figure it out. What do you need to make you feel like yourself again? And that's different for every single person. Some people do yoga. I tell everybody to do yoga, but I don't do it. It looks like it hurts. But I am a coward, but I love telling other people what to do. But do what you know makes you feel like yourself again, and you've got to make it a priority. That self-care is everything, because it's really tough to do anything for anybody else if you're not doing it for yourself. You need to come first. Bessel van der Kolk talks about the pre-trauma conditions, and the pre-trauma conditions of COVID, what we've gone through for the last, how many months, and what we're going to go through for a little while, are tough. Not being able to predict what's going to happen is very hard. Like I said, we are all experiencing what it's like to have autism. It's so tough to be in a world that you can't predict and don't understand. And we're all in that world right now, right? We thought this was going to be a sprint. And it turns out it's a marathon. What? Another 26 miles? I thought I was done, right? I remember everyone saying, oh, we'll be opened up by June. Well, opened up isn't what we thought it was, right? Being isolated is hard. It's really tough. Being immobile, not moving, not doing like we used to. It's so important. Thank goodness we've had warm weather, but we've got to be prepared to find out ways to move and release all this tension from our body when it gets cold again. Because that immobility is what Vander Kolk, who is a specialist in trauma, talks about as a pre-trauma condition. Not getting it out of your body. Also not feeling safe. That speaks for itself. Safety physically as well as emotionally. Many of us are not connected to the groups that make us emotionally safe. We're not going to church. We're not going to our community centers. We're not going to the book clubs. Some of it's online, but that just isn't the same. So that community connection gives us emotional safety, and it's tough not to have. So we've got to find our workarounds. And a loss of sense of purpose. Vander Kolk talks a lot about a loss of sense of purpose as being really devastating. But I want to say, I don't worry about that with you, because you have the most important jobs in the world. You have an incredibly important mission, and your sense of purpose shouldn't be going away, because you are so needed. And so I'm not worried about that. Thank you for what you do. Some of us feel trapped. What is this world? Eleanor Roosevelt said, and she went through a lot, you can gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along. And I love this because she's like, you're tougher than you think. And it's true. We're tougher than we think. Hey, look at us. Look at what we made it through. Look how amazing we are. We are incredible. Look at this. Where's my sign? I have props. Yes. You rock. You're amazing. You're still working, still doing what you need to do, still helping people. Celebrate yourself. You're incredible. Antidotes for these pre-trauma conditions. Not being able to predict anything is really hard. Every day we see something different, but you can predict what you're going to do to a certain extent. I've started making lists, small lists. Don't make so many lists that you put too much pressure on yourself. You got to be easy on yourself, but do things, make a list including fun things you want to do for yourself and things you need to do to make yourself feel better, like your laundry, whatever it is, but your list for you, making yourself a priority. Antidote for being isolated, connect. We've all been learning how to use technology. Oh my gosh, oh my goodness, I'm still not a master. And trying to figure that out so we can connect, because the more isolated we are, when you're isolated, you will have that loop of trauma. If you have any kind of PTSD, the isolation actually intensifies it. And you get in that re-experiencing loop, that first symptom that I taught you about, right? Which you already know, I'm sure, but that loop of re-experiencing what went wrong, and it starts coming up in your head, and then you start thinking things that you don't really want to think, and you keep remembering things. That's why you have to connect with other people. It keeps you in the present. It's a heart-to-heart connection that's so critical. And friendship, I have more signs. Friends make happiness bloom. There's a lot of research showing that friendships and relationships actually protect you against trauma and lessen its effects. So be with those friends, reconnect with ones that maybe you haven't talked with for a while. You deserve it. And then being immobile, move. Thank goodness the weather's warm. Take walks, dance, have a dance party in your living room. No one's watching. Do some yoga. Again, I'm telling you to do yoga and I don't do it. Maybe one day I will. Loss of sense of safety. Engage in safe practices, talk to safe people. There are people in your life that make you feel safe, and there are people in your life that don't, right? Who are we kidding? Stay away from the ones that don't. The ones that just want to tell you everything wrong with you and with them, but more about you. You don't need to be talking to them. Cut them off. How about the one that just listens to you who's really a friend? That's who you need to be talking about. Safety has to do with also having safe and warm friendships and relationships, and they're so important. Establish soothing rituals for yourself. Maybe you haven't taken a bath in years. Get some bath salts and take a bath. Do whatever it is for you. Make a ritual that's just for you for that self-care. And loss of sense of purpose, you may find all kinds of ways to make a difference. My husband doesn't work in this field. He's a scientist. And then his lab was closed. So he really did kind of lose it for a while. He's like, I know, I'll start cooking, which hasn't been a good thing. Like he thinks he's in the lab making experiments. Doesn't always taste that good. But I always say it's good because I'd rather he cook than me, even if it doesn't taste that good. But so he started just writing postcards to people, and it kind of calmed him down. Like, oh, I can reach out and send postcards. I saw him get better. So remember, this too shall pass. That's one thing we can always hold on to. No matter what happens, this too shall pass. Change is the one constant we have in this world. No matter what you're going through, you will get through it. In Chinese, the character for crisis actually means dangerous opportunity, right? There's opportunities here. By now, you already know them, right? But there's more waiting for us. I know so many people that have reconnected with old hobbies, doing things they didn't, my one friend is doing stained glass again. Another one is crocheting. Cool. Also, listening to music, doing things for you. This is an opportunity, and it's a great opportunity for growth. There's opportunity on many different levels here. It's a time to reflect. I have this one friend, and I hope she never hears this talk I'm giving because she'll know I'm talking about her. All she ever did was complain about her husband. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. Oh, do you know what he did today? And it was so much to have to listen to this that I was about to start a GoFundMe for a divorce lawyer. Let's just get her out of this thing. Let's get the best damn lawyer we can get for her. Sorry about my language. I have verbally inappropriate behavior. And let's just fund a lawyer. And wouldn't you know it, about 2 months into COVID, I was talking to her and she starts telling me about how much she appreciates her husband. I'm like, is this you? Maybe I got the wrong number. What? You appreciate him? She's like, yeah, because she's a type A personality, traveled a lot and he's kind of a homebody. She's like, yeah, he's always been there for my son and he actually does a lot. I'm so happy to hear you say this. I can save some money. It's a time to reflect. It's a time to appreciate. It's a time to sit back and say, wait a minute, I've come a long way and I can move forward in ways I didn't even think about before. Let's talk about resiliency. It's the most important issue right now, right? Resiliency. What is resiliency? That grit, that toughness, being able to withstand things. And I believe there's 3 important components to resiliency. Optimism. Martin Seligman has a beautiful book called Learned Optimism. I highly recommend it. He also wrote Authentic Happiness and Flourish. And what he talks about is how optimistic people actually are more resilient and stronger, even if they're not always right and their optimism isn't even correct. like things are really bad, but they're still optimistic, they actually do better in bad situations. And there's a lot of research showing that. Optimism, engagement, being in the here and now, engaged, doing, being present is the key to resiliency. I have a dear friend who has had more trauma in her life than anyone I know. And I'm a therapist and I hear a lot of bad stories. She just was sexually abused by several, like her father, her uncle growing up, and emotionally abused by her mother, just horrible things. And yet she is doing well, like she has a life that she enjoys. And I talk to her a lot and we talk about all kinds of things. And I say, you know, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. How are you doing it? Like, and she gets a lot of therapy, but she's like, you know what? The real key for me is that I force myself to be in the here and now, to be inside of the present moment. I'm constantly closing the door on the past and engaging in the present and moving forward, being here and now. And then finally, creativity. And I'm not talking about whether or not you have artistic talent. I have none. I have all thumbs. But your ability to live creatively, to be in the flow, to work around, to do things differently. And I bet a lot of you are realizing that you had all kinds of creativity you didn't know about because you figured out different ways to do things. So let's talk about each one of those and really focus on becoming resilient. So optimism. So what Seligman says is the key to optimism is appreciation and gratitude. And he talks about writing a gratitude journal. Oprah has also talked about that as well. I think if you think about a time in your life that was worse, you made it through. You got to believe in yourself. You have amazing ability. We all do. An ability to get through things. Just stop and think what you've gone through. Look at how amazing you are because you are a survivor. Think about the ways you've grown and you've changed. Celebrate yourself and how much you've grown, how far you've come. Write a thank you card to someone you feel appreciative for. That thank you card makes them feel wonderful, but it makes you feel even better because you're saying, yes, because of you, I'm so far. I've come so far. Affirm your beliefs. Go back to those values, your core values of who you are. Affirm them. This is who I am and this is what I believe. Even if you write it down. You know, we all go through these ridiculous exercises in our jobs. Oh, it's our mission, our vision, our mission, our vision. And how about your own mission and vision for you? What do you believe in? First and foremost, believe in yourself. Look at you. You've come so far and you do amazing things. So often, we as human beings are looking at what we're not doing. I didn't do this and I didn't do that. No, I had to do. Let's start focusing on how great we are, what we are doing. It's amazing if you think about it. There was a study done in the Emmons lab. Robert Emmons is a PhD researcher and he has studied gratitude, and he actually looked at the effect of basically having appreciation. Appreciation is free and it's so valuable and so wonderful. And he showed that it actually changes how you operate through your day. So he had 3 groups of people. The first group, they all had to journal and they went through, weeks of this. And they all had to keep a journal. The first group, he told, write down just positives, everything good that happened to you this day. At the end of the day, write down just the good stuff every day. Second group, they were supposed to write down the good stuff and the bad stuff, right? Write the good and the bad, the reality. So the first group might say, I had a great lunch, took a wonderful walk, and talked to a friend. The second group might say, I had a great lunch, but then I realized that I had a bill I hadn't paid, and I realized I had to pay it. And then my car broke down and I had to deal with that. But then I talked to a friend. And then the third group, so the second group writes about reality. The first group is only the good stuff. The last group writes just the bad stuff. My car broke down and I got this bill I had to pay. And that's what they record is what was bad. After just a matter of weeks, and big difference after a longer period, the first group of people, and these are randomly selected people, the first group reported having a great deal more energy, being able to focus more, being more alert, and being more enthusiastic about their life, like feeling hopeful about their life. The second group actually became less optimistic, and they were the ones just writing the facts, but they weren't focusing on what was good. And the third group actually became really pessimistic, started feeling very tired all the time, discouraged, hopeless. So what you focus on affects you on many different levels. And a big piece of healing from trauma and moving forward is gratitude and appreciation, is figuring out what's good. Hey, this is good. So I kept telling myself I was going to do a gratitude journal, and I was determined. I've been determined for years to become an optimist. I was born a pessimist. I was like Chicken Little from the day I came out of my mother's tummy. Oh my God, look at this planet. It's a mess. What am I going to do here? And always worrying, always worrying. And then I said, I've got to change. I read all Martin Seligman's books. I studied psychology. I got to become an optimist. I've been working hard on it. I think I can say I'm an optimist. I'm pretty darn close. But I kept saying I'm going to do a gratitude journal. I'm going to do a gratitude journal. I go to the Hallmark. I buy a nice little journal and not write a damn thing in it. But I finally realized that by the end of the night, I'm tired. And all I want to do is have my glass of Chardonnay and sometimes I say watch Netflix and chill, and then someone told me to stop saying that. So I don't say that anymore because that is not what I'm doing. So put my feet up, watch TV, and have my glass of wine. And I don't feel like writing anything. But what I'm doing now, and I've been doing it ever since COVID started, was I write in the morning what I'm grateful for the day before. And I am feeling more energized. That gratitude, even if you're just grateful for something you ate that was good or a nice conversation you had, the small things are the big things. They really are. So do that gratitude journal, whatever time of day works for you. I also recommend doing an appreciation circle. Those of you who are working in residential settings, you can have the same time every day where you sit in a circle and everybody in that circle has to say something they appreciate. If you do that every day, you're going to see the spirits being lifted. It's really amazing. I'm working with one agency where they're doing it, and people are having more fun, less behavioral issues. Kind of like Thanksgiving when you go around the table and say what you're grateful for. I don't know if you guys in Canada, you don't do that. Oh, well, you do other things. You're also nice. You probably say it every day, something nice. But appreciation circles really help you, where you just kind of call each other on appreciating. Say, okay, we're going to go around. Everybody's going to say something they appreciate. Even if somebody doesn't use words, they can point. Yes. Celebrations. Well, many of those of having birthdays, many folks who are having anniversaries and things, some aren't celebrating, some are. But they're celebrating in different ways. I believe it's really important to celebrate, and it's part of being an optimist. Find ways to celebrate. Even if you get a cake from your safest little, grocery store around the corner and put a candle in it, and if you're not doing sugar, don't eat it. But do whatever you got to do to have a celebration. Because more celebrating, more optimism. And there is a lot to celebrate. We're still alive. Yes. Engagement. Okay. Being active, interacting, being here and now. really important book that I'm reading by a guy named Stuart Brown, who talks about the importance of playing, that adults should play, that we should play more, that we should have all kinds of games in our life and play what you enjoy, because he said playing is a time when you regenerate your energy, you replenish your soul, you just can enjoy, play with others, play games you like by yourself, play, play, play. He says, I love this quote, play can become a doorway to a new self. Ooh, learn a new game. This is really a different way of thinking. Play is a critical, just as important as exercise. And if you're not exercising, at least you can play and not feeling bad about the fact that you are playing. Because playing is very good for you mentally. You actually form new neural pathways. They've shown with studies how your brain wakes up and actually works better when you're playing. Yes, more reasons to play. Creative living. There's new and different ways to do things. Yes, you've already found that out, right? Oh my gosh. How many different ways can we connect with people without going to restaurants? And maybe some people are in different areas, but you know, we can find all kinds of ways to do what we have to do to meet our needs, to enjoy our life. I had one mom that I was talking to who had a child with a disability and three boys, and one has special needs, really high energy kids. And she said the first month of COVID, and she's a single mom. The first month of COVID, she thought she was going to shoot herself. And she was lucky she didn't have a gun in the house. She's like, ah, it was crazy. Then she realized that she just had to have all kinds of creative things going on for everybody. And she started setting up obstacle courses in her backyard. Luckily, she lived in Texas, so it was warm. But she, every day, and she would change it and time them and have races and have all kinds of things and all kinds of games. And they wore themselves out. And she stayed sane. And, you know, being creative, so many people, I hear so many wonderful stories of people finding different ways to do things and finding ways to live an enriched life. Yeah, this is a beautiful time, and there'll be many amazing stories of people doing it differently. But the more wedded we are to the way things used to be and the way we wanted to do things, the more we suffer, right? So those first few months were so hard for everybody, so hard. And now it's hard because we thought it was going to be over, and it looks like it's not. So that endurance is tough. But again, if we can live creatively, if we can find ways to play, if we can find ways to connect with others, find those ways to enjoy our life. I myself am drinking a lot of wine. The best wines are the ones we drink with friends, even if it's in a Zoom happy hour. I got a lot of signs. So we can do things differently and allow ourselves to. That's a key for resilience. I'm going to teach you the butterfly. This is an EMDR technique that actually helps you if you're starting to stress about something. You can do this and you'll find that the stress starts to relieve. I believe in Qigong, Tai Chi. I believe in breathing. All the coping mechanisms you know, please use them. Breathing. But this butterfly is great. Okay, so you cross your arms and you go back and forth rhythmically and breathe so you can focus on what you're stressing about and breathe and tap back and forth. It has to be exactly rhythmically and back and forth. And you see yourself starting to relax, starting to let it go, starting to feel better. So if in the middle of the day it's just too much, take a butterfly moment. There's Daisaku Ikeda, a great Buddhist scholar with Nelson Mandela. I love talking about Nelson Mandela. He is a great man, was a great man. We lost him, but an example of somebody who was totally the victim of racism, extremely, and shut down because he was in prison for 27 years because of racism. And instead of being crushed by that, he trained himself during that period. So that's another beautiful aspect of COVID. I know I'm reading more. I'm also moving through molasses, so I'm doing it slowly. There's something about this time where I can't get anything done quickly, but I'm learning things, reading things. He spent that time doing so much more, training himself. In fact, he took up boxing and said he released the trauma from his childhood through boxing. That physicality released it because we store it in our body and we release it through physical work, exercise and releasing. And then he studied and organized and prepared. And when he came out of prison, he not only changed South Africa, he changed the world. And he used that time of oppression, seclusion, to train himself. Right? And I saw actually this quote today from Daisaku Ikeda. I have two quotes. Usually I just have one, but I added the second quote that I found today. I found so inspiring. He says, precisely because we are in a time of change, and he wrote this yesterday, precisely because we are in a time of change, let's engage in breakthrough thinking and take positive action. That's creative living. Let's be discerning without fear of failure and continue to challenge ourselves with courage. Then let's open a fresh path forward. I love that. And then he says, which are my last quote to you and really my most important message to you, other than thank you. That's my most important message is thank you. Second most important message, those living in an age of crisis must become the pioneers of a better age. I believe that the DSP is really the person who should be leading the way for the future, that you are the future leaders because you have chose the most humanistic work to do in your life. And we must enter an age of humanism. And you are not just talking the talk, you are walking the walk. And I believe that you are the people who should be leading the way into how to value humanity, and that we must enter a time in which we value humanity. And I think everything is showing us that now is time to really get our values straight. And the fact that you do the work you do with the commitment you do shows me you're ahead of the rest of us. You got it right. So consider yourself the leaders of a new era as we follow you in the path of humanism. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourself, please. Thanks.
Wow. Wow. I don't know how to follow that. I can't follow that other than give away some gift cards and some books. But Dr. Karyn Harvey, thank you for what an incredible presentation. I think we all needed to hear exactly your message, and we really appreciate you so much. We also appreciate the people, the organizations and the people that sponsored this particular session, and this particular organization that sponsored this session is the American Association for Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, the AAIDD. Thank you so much for sponsoring Dr. Harvey. And also, the AAIDD has contributed some prizes for some lucky winners, and I'm going to tell you those lucky winners right now. AAIDD contributed 5 books. I don't know the exact titles of the books, but I'm sure they're great. But here are the winners of the 5 books. So from Idaho, OUI, Jill Grant. Jill Grant, you won a book. Erica Litzy from Trinity Services in Illinois, you won a book. Maria Rigo from Miami CP, in Miami, Florida, and also Jordanka Cheka from Miami CP. Both of you have won books. And the last of the 5 books has been won by Barbara Fox at Catholic Charities. So thank you again, AAIDD, for contributing those books to our Praise to Promise virtual event and this particular session. So now, this is only for direct support professionals. The books were open to anybody that registered with us, and that's great. But we have a whole bunch of gift cards from these very generous sponsors who were able to give us these gift cards to give out to direct support professionals who are registered and who are watching these sessions. So these 2 gift cards are thanks to Rose and Kiernan. So one $100 gift card is from Rose and Kiernan. And the second $100 gift card comes from the ARC Mid-Hudson. So thank you, Rose and Kiernan, and thank you, the ARC Mid-Hudson. So drum roll, please. There you go. First winner. My friends at Black Hills Works out in Rapid City, South Dakota, a DSP-3, Samantha Heenan. You have won a $100 gift card, so congratulations. And the second winner from the Arkansas Support Services, or Arkansas Support Services rather, and another DSP, and congratulations to Vel Wilborn. So everybody that won either books or gift cards, you will get a notification by email. We've got your information and you'll get access to your books and your gift cards. Congratulations. So, hey, thank you for tuning in. Take everything that Karyn Harvey, Dr. Karyn Harvey has shared with us and make it come to life in your life. The message couldn't be more important for all of us. So we'll see you at the next session, and a happy Direct Support Professional Recognition Week.